Esa, ni mweo mwema shilaka na vesa. Come rain, come sunshine, I will give you praise. In my good and bad times, Lord, I will give you praise. There's nobody better than you. Nobody better than you. Oh,
take me anywhere you want, I go follow you. Yeah, I go follow you. Oh, where was she lying? Where was she lying? Where let's come in, yeah, come in, where let's come in,
Papa God, you surprise me. I don't understand how you love me. Dile mucho chabe, but you when it comes so chabe. You love me despite my faults. Take me anywhere I will go. You love me despite my faults. Take me anywhere I will go. Eh. There's nobody better than you.
Papa.
Nobody better than you. Oh.
Take me anywhere you want, I go follow you. Yeah, I go follow you. Oh, where was she lying? Where was she lying? Where let's come in, yeah, come in, where let's come in, come in,
7.
yeah.
When they see me hands in the air, they don't know what I've been through. When me presence flying in the air, they don't know it's just me and you. So take it, Lord, take it higher. With all the praise, we magnify ya. We never stop even through the fire. Through the fire. Take it, Lord, take it higher. With all the praise, we magnify ya. We never stop even through the fire. Take me, Lord, where you want me to.
Yeah. To hold me when I'm falling, yeah. Mueles I'm coming, I'm coming,
This is the first child is split.
In terms of salaries, in terms of contracting and getting new gigs, but also female entrepreneurs. MS.ABA and I'm Kimberly Ofori, and welcome to Women About Business.
So, Women About Business is a monthly talk for career women and women who do business.
The idea really came about when I was consulting a lot of women on best practices when it comes to negotiation, in terms of salaries, in terms of contracting and getting new gigs, but also female entrepreneurs who are struggling to have access to the same access to tools and expertise and networks really that men have access to. And this information is out there, but a lot of women are finding it hard to reach out to each other, find each other, and connect. And so I thought it would be a great idea if we have people who have been through the struggle, who have been through climbing up the career ladder, who have been through building a business from scratch, and sharing these ideas for a broader audience to see.
So we talked about it on a cup of coffee, and I said, you know what, this has to be a segment on my show. So here we are. So the reason why Women About Business is here, especially for me, is I had an event where I asked too little money for the work that I did as a communication strategist. And the director at the time called me out at a very sudden moment and said, you know what, you're way too humble. You're way too timid. And if this is the way you're going to go about stuff, people will underappreciate you. And that's when I knew that, hey, something has to change. And if some of these conversations could just happen every month where we invite women, talk about it, then we are solving a lot of problems out there. So that's why I think Women About Business is very necessary.
Women About Business is a very personal project for me, actually, because I found that whilst I was trying to build my own companies and communicate with other women about the struggles that I was going through, it was very hard to find information out there, very practical information, tools, tips, and tricks of experienced people who had been through what I was going through as well. And I think it could have saved me a whole lot of heartache. And of course, I think for every entrepreneur, it's very important to have your own path and to make sure that you have those experiences so that it builds you up. But at the same time, I think there are certain mistakes that we make as women that we can avoid and therefore um, reach our goals faster if we just knew that those decisions were not the best to make. And I think for women in business, when we start tackling some of these things, when it comes to positioning yourself, building on strategy, thinking about growth mindset, making sure that you do not undervalue yourself, making sure that you understand exactly the steps you need to take in order to succeed, whether it's in your own business or whether it is trying to get into a leadership role. Those tools, tips, and tricks, I think, are essential. And if we are able to share that on one platform for women, by women, I think we can go a long way in making sure that equality becomes reality. Watch out for Women About Business because we'll be launching soon.
And make sure that you follow us on all our social platforms on Facebook at Hiradio NL, on Twitter and Instagram, plus our website www.hiradionl.com. Stay tuned.
Poof, there I am. Haven't I just slightly mastered the online or let's just say the lockdown mode of streaming from wherever I am, sort of. It feels weird, or at first it felt weird to not be at the studio, and now I had been at home for so long that coming back is kind of like a journey, and kind of, yeah, I'm kind of adjusting to this life here in the Netherlands. Have been announced to sort of see my lockdown, and things are a bit more restricted. People at home aren't even allowed to, I think, meet with more than four people from outside, coming in. I even heard that the major cities, the Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, and stuff, are also going to go through a lockdown whereby you can't go in, you can't go out. Crazy. I don't know what is going to happen, but I think some are going to feel really uncomfortable with this that we are in. Again, welcome. It's that Tuesday. As mentioned, Africa on Focus comes on Sunday, but on Tuesdays, it's time for Women About Business. We have taken or we have made the decision alongside, the management of High Radio to really take Women About Business to its own day, whereby myself and Kimberly Ofori take on a conversation with an inspiring woman out there in the world, global African female. that can share with us a lot about how to do business and do it successfully. Today we have a very special guest, but first, before we're going to go on, I just want to welcome you to Women About Business here, which airs every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Amsterdam time, 6 p.m. Accra time. I'm still figuring out the other time and locations out, whether that be for UK or whatever. But on Tuesdays, hey, we are here. I'm your host, Miss.ABA, and you're watching Hiradio, the voice of the next generation. We just had a relaunch and we're fully back in force. Our studio is just streaming live. We have a lineup of programs alongside all of my colleagues at the radio station. But that doesn't matter right now. Today we have a very special guest. And of course, in a bit, my co host, Kimberly Ofori, is going to join me in this conversation, and we're going to make sure that we grasp all of the goodies, all of the good information from this phenomenal woman that we are going to talk to in a bit. What we are going to talk about building ecosystems. What does that even mean, building ecosystem? Okay, so first, when my line of work presented me to this world of startups, startups, medium size companies, it's like you come into this world of vocabulary and you're like, what does all of that mean? Ecosystems, and there are more words that are going to come on top of mind. But anyway, how to build the business environment that we are in, that's really what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk to a woman that is a noted woman in Ghana, in Africa, West Africa, as she's known as a matchmaker. She does so much more. She knows who to find, who to connect, who to link you to as, a starting company that is looking to scale up, that is looking for that next level. And how that even goes about. We are going to talk to her about that. Um, Women About Business, as I mentioned today. This is a woman. I'm going to get her on so that we can get it to talk. And we're talking to Madam Amma Gyampo. I've talked to her before. I've had like a quiet interview, a one-on-one interview with her before for another platform, which was a really good conversation. She knows so much. I've met her before as well in Ghana. At that time, I was on I was consulting for a project which was a startup project for startups in Ghana, for entrepreneurs that looking for investment. And she was on the panel, the judging panel, and I helped prepare the entrepreneur's pitch, and she was on there on that day. So I'm promising you a very impactful conversation as it is. She is the matchmaker and known as a lady that promotes early stage African investment opportunities to global investors. I'm going to announce her in a bit, but I'm already seeing Kimberly, so let me just ensure that I get her here to talk, and then we're going to introduce our special guest. So hold on tight. Hello, Kimberly. How are you doing?
Hey girl, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to have you on. All pink and glammed.
Pink and ready.
Already. Absolutely, absolutely. This is a lady that we are going to talk to, and I know that you know her. Could you share a bit about Amma as we announce her to come on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember very vividly when I first learned of her name. I was doing some research about doing business in Ghana, especially around. Wow, I'm joking. Sorry.
You good?
One second.
Don't
Bring me
worry.
back a second.
Feel free to grab something to drink or water or something like that. You know how it gets. And mind you that here on the other side of the world, it's that September, October itch. Oh, it's that it has that flu vibe, and especially in this time, uh, even speaking of flu is like a no go because of Rona, of course. In the meantime, I just want to give a shout out to Samantha Ajua. I just love having Samantha Ajua on the show. She always comes in, connect with us. Shout out to you, saying it's a big, small world. I know Amma as well, and I'm looking forward to hearing her speak. catching Hiradio on my lunch break. Wow, how is it in NYC? Thank you, Samantha. And of course, I know you know her, but if you have comments, questions, feel free to drop them. Let's see how Kimberly is doing. I hope you got a good glass of water.
I'm alive, y'all, and there's no corona. I literally just choked on a Smith. That's why you shouldn't talk with your mouth full. So
All
anyway,
right. Yeah.
um, so I was looking and I was doing research on, ecosystems and also about, the whole scaling of our startups. And she came up in a number of searches. And so
Oh.
I remember very well putting her on a list of women that I wanted to reach out to and speak to this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was building this platform for women, still looking for people who were stakeholders on the African continent. Found out about her. Then I really found really interestingly how she went from the whole journey in the UK and then making a very conscious decision to come back. So as a returnee, her journey, and then looking at how can I support the ecosystem? How can I build an ecosystem with
Yeah.
it through collaboration? Because what we're finding a lot on the continent is that one of the things that's holding us back is that we're so siloed. There's multiple organizations seemingly try to do the same thing. And so I really found her to be that person that really looks for the connection. Where can we work together? What is your strength? What is mine? How can we put that together? And I think that's also the beauty of ScaleUp Africa. One thing that we're going to be talking about is how she set this up, but together with her co-founder, but really how she was able to bring so many different people from different disciplines and different industries together to work together, and now starting to make a change.
Yeah. So, without further ado, as I shared, Amma Gyampo is known as the matchmaker and known as the lady that promotes early stage African investment opportunities to global investors. She's also the co-founder of ScaleUp Africa Limited, as Kimberly mentioned, an enterprise to promote the growth of youth and African female-led ventures. It's time to get her on the show because I've seen her in the background already. Welcome, Amma Gyampo. How are you, Amma?
I'm very well, ladies. Good to see you. Hello,
Good to
everybody.
see you.
It's literally been a while that I've seen you.
Oh, I know. I think it's since the webinar series when COVID hit and we were doing the
Oh,
survival
we
series.
know.
Yeah, that was the last time we saw each other. But good to see you both. How about you too?
Yes, exactly. It was a while seeing you as well, but we had a good conversation. That was
Yeah.
kind of about this as well. So it's business brings us here.
Yeah, exactly. Let's continue the conversation.
Exactly. So how was your day? Where are you in this space of time in your in business and life? Could you share a bit about that?
Sure, sure. I'm in Accra right now with the family, limiting the exposure to COVID, but we're not on lockdown in Ghana. So
Yeah.
it's pretty free, but it's really, everyone taking precautions and doing the necessary with the mask wearing and the social distancing. So we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Business is a little slow, obviously impacted by COVID. So we're still trying to respond and create solutions for the community as always.
Yeah, yeah. And how has it been in your work as it relates to like from March up until now? I think that has been the crushing period for many. How has this affected your routines? Your working, your contact. Has it affected, or has this brought a flip, a new change to your working? How has that been?
Yeah, I think, I'm a mom. I have two kids, so obviously they're at home, and we're all working from home, grappling with some of the issues that entails. But I think it's, as always, we're all looking for balance and better ways of doing things. So we all got used to this new world and the new ways of working. In terms of business, we are basically a startup ourselves, having come together, Olivia and I, my business partner, coming together last year, but really launching Scale Up Africa this year. It's been an interesting period of time, and Kimberly was actually one of the first people that we really got to know and have conversations with earlier this year when COVID first hit, and we quickly had to pivot to the digital space to just offer SME support services through our our webinar series, which was called Survival Series at the time, which was such a shock for so many SMEs and entrepreneurs not knowing what to do, running out of cash. It was a very difficult time. But I think for most of us, it has been a year of deep reflection and analysis of where the recovery is going to come from, how it's going to look, how we're going to collaborate, partner, find ways of moving forward together, because it's going to be tough for everybody globally, but we've got to find creative solutions to work closer together and find better ways of sustaining ourselves.
I remember so well, Amma, that when COVID hit and everybody was kind of looking and scrambling for information about, okay, what is the textbook way to handle this, right? And I remember for myself, there was no precedent. Also, it was kind of this for Africa. I feel on the continent, it was more so like we are just going to. It was some countries understanding they could not copy the West. And then other countries going like, well, at least we're going to start with doing what they do and then figure our stuff out. And I think what I really loved about Ghana is how quickly it was understood that this is not, Amsterdam. This is not London. We are not going to do the same things and get the same results. And especially when such a large percentage of our businesses are in the informal sector, you cannot have people on lockdown, all of these things. And so I'm looking to find out. I remember very much during that survival series that you organized, the questions were not necessarily about, oh, how do I pivot or what, like, I mean, we've been pivoting, like that's African, like we're constantly, adapting, changing. But it was more so about how am I going to stay relevant with this new change in terms of going digital, more virtual, where the infrastructures are not there yet. Have you found that to be kind of the central question still, or has that changed in any way with the conversations that you're having?
I think that, digital has been accelerated by like a decade. I think that according to estimates, it depends on each country, but even Ghana, like you literally have a meeting across town, you have to drive all the way across town in traffic for a 5-minute meeting if it's like with a high level person, or they may be late, or it's just so inefficient. So, but it's such a face-to-face environment. So you definitely see a shift in the adoption, like the adoption rate has definitely, you hear a lot of more people saying, oh, let's Zoom, let's have a chat, let's Skype or whatever. Skype, I don't remember the last time I mentioned Skype, but just say but yeah, exactly. So I think digitization is still a challenge in terms of, events are being moved online, everything is being moved online, people are exploring e-commerce. I mean, one of the services that we provide is, mobile and web application building, just to enable SMEs to get their, tech infrastructure together. But like you say, the informal sector makes up the vast majority. And that it's still a challenge. Data is still expensive, access is still a challenge. Even not in the major cities in Ghana, in Africa, wherever, you're going to be, the digital divide is a real thing. A lot of people have, and a lot of people have not. So getting online is not necessarily an option for a huge swathe of the population. So the question still remains, how do we deal with those kind of infrastructural problems and access issues, affordability? That's still a challenge. And obviously that's a government conversation. Obviously there are startups in the tech ecosystem that are trying to solve these problems, like, bringing market women into the digital space, promoting e-commerce platforms and building those solutions for more businesses to get virtual or digital. But it's still a challenge. I mean, that's something that we are going to have stronger conversations about it and maybe implement some more interesting solutions.
Right.
So going back to because we're now diving into you as a businesswoman and you understanding how business work. Going back to you, Amma Gyampo. I mean, like within business, if we go to Ghana, people know you. I mean, those who know you. Let's just say that. But how would you, in your own words, describe who is Amma Gyampo and what is it that you actually deliver, as in terms of what your why is? Kimberly always asks that question, what is your why? Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm nodding vigorously because I think that why the purpose, the higher purpose, is absolutely what should drive each of us. Actually, my son's a teenager now, but we're having conversations about purpose already, because some of us, it takes a lifetime to even understand what your purpose is. And trust me, when you move to Africa, if you don't have a cushy job with a fat paycheck, a driver, accommodation sorted, if you don't have that cushioning, trust me, you are here for a higher purpose. And that is what will take you through the tough times, because it is difficult. It's different. It's just a different culture of doing business. Punctuality, professionalism, ethics. The pace of life, the pace of decision making. If you're talking about public sector interaction, the politics of it. Being a woman in a patriarchal society. All these things are very difficult. So definitely, my why is really about there's a whole wave of us, including the two of you, that care deeply about, the new Africa, what that means, infrastructure, industrialization, empowering women, empowering youth, creating jobs. These are the things that drive us, because we're thinking about our children and the next generation. Like,
Yeah.
Ghana's been independent for over 60 years. We all know the narrative about how long it's taken us to actually develop ourselves. But clearly there's a generation of us who feel the need for some acceleration, a bit more urgency in terms of implementing solutions, and for us, like you said in the introduction, it is about collaboration. It's the academics, it's the investors. Where's the money? Where are the ideas? Where are the models that work? Who's done it in Kenya? Who's done it in South Africa? Let's not recreate the wheel. What can we do to partner and bring this solution to Ghana, and scale the solution? So I think it really is about scaling the solutions to accelerate our development, and for those who hold the keys, which are women and youth.
Yeah.
I love this. We're diving into that last one, but I also love what you tapped into just in your in what you were sharing just now about not reinventing the wheel, because I think this has become even more important now during this pandemic, where we have found out that we have all of the knowledge, we have all of the resources, we have all of the kind of, there's money actually, which a lot of us who are in the business and have been working, we knew, but now it's like, oh, wait a minute. So we can step up and we can kind of build, centers and communities and solutions in a matter of weeks now, if there's a pandemic. So now the question becomes, what do you think it has been the biggest challenge for, I would say, the continent to kind of move away from this this notion that we don't have or we don't know, and we still need to wait for outside input or solutions? Because I think, and in as much as this is changing, it's still, it's like it's a systemic kind of, the system has not been created for that to happen.
Right. I mean, we are here to create a system, right? We need to create a new system. Exactly. If you look at the generation before ours, our fathers, our mothers, they left the continent to go abroad, get educated, and have a job for life, or as long as possible. And maybe towards the latter years, maybe 10%, 20%, maybe would come back.
Right.
And then, for their twilight years. Our generation is very different. We can easily travel. It's cheaper to travel. Of course, Corona's here, so we're having a different conversation. But people come and go. They can easily travel. UK to Ghana, east to west. It's a lot more easy to travel. But I think a lot of us have a deep sense of creating something different and new from what was. And so I think the biggest block has been the generational leadership, right, and the notion of leadership. So now you hear more about, tuned in leadership, which my friend Taka Wari, shout out Taka, who's a leadership coach. She's like, tuned in leadership. What are the real issues? What do you see and feel around you? How do you empathize with those you are serving? Servant leadership. That's something, again, we hear a lot more about. These are relatively new concepts that are gaining more popularity. Whereas before, we're up here, we're telling you what to do, we're the leaders. And it's end of conversation. It's not collaborative. It's not consultative. It's not, we don't have that partnership kind of ethos. Though, of course, we speak about it, but in terms of really, truly breaking down the silos and truly reaching out to stakeholders across, from top to bottom and across the board in an inclusive manner, that I think has been a bit of a block to actually creating something new, and the lack of maybe maybe courage. Courage is a thing. I remember when I moved to Ghana, people kept saying, "Oh, you guys are so brave. You guys are moving back to Africa, and brave." And I'm like, brave? Really? It's not. Sorry, it's not like Afghanistan. It's like we don't have a war that we're dealing with. This is our war, like economic empowerment and building capacity, opening up people's minds to what is possible, getting ready for the fourth industrial revolution, environmental issues, social issues. There's so many issues that we are here to fight for, right? There was a war fueled by guns and bombs. Thankfully, we are lucky in Ghana, but of course there are pockets of instability across the world. Not just Africa. So we're here to kind of make a difference in that regard, and so I think we can only be guided by that and continue to find ways beyond the talk shops and the conferences and the webinars, which don't seem to end nowadays. It's I keep saying to Olivia, my business partner, it's really time to kind of put our money, our resources together and deliver tangibles, deliver, with not necessarily with government. Of course, government is the biggest, decision maker and resource holder, but we should be able to demonstrate in our own ecosystems and communities how things can be done in a different way, where everybody wins, in an inclusive manner, where everybody wins, and not just those at the top.
I love that. And also, you guys kind of lead, you and Olivia kind of lead by example. I feel, especially when I learned about you guys actually, from working together on a project or an initiative to just kind of blending in the two businesses and becoming partners in business, I think was really a strong message. For me, it came across as a very strong message that we're not just here to play, right? And also, we're not just here because it's cute and it's nice and we're kind of social entrepreneurs and, it's kind of like, we're here we mean business. We understand what our strengths are and we're collaborating and bringing that together. And I feel like that is probably, and you can see that in the spirit of everything that you're doing with the programs, the recent business festival, that was a tremendous event for Africa. I think it put us on the map right there because, there was so much attention. There was so much media coverage, but not necessarily because we've never had virtual events, but because of the sheer focus and the kind of people that were speaking, that were not just, people who are always shouting Africa, people who for maybe up until the pandemic, we're never even talking about Africa. And we're now really, really becoming strong voices on how important it is for us to look at our resources and connect, because we are now finding out when we are pressured, when the pressure cooker is on, there's a lot of juice coming out.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. So going back to, you talking about your why, and of course, all of the good achievement that you are doing as a businesswoman, how did the topic of youth and African women particularly come about for you?
I think you just see it all around. Beyond all the stats and the demographic information and, the unemployment rates. We read about these every day here on the radio, every single day. I think and then it's that factor of, when you invest in women, how that multiplies, in an economy, especially in a developing economy. So for us, again, I'm a woman, I'm young. So, I sit in that box quite neatly. So it's just about really, again, finding out ways to collaborate and find solutions to help others who are less fortunate. It's not in a patronizing way, but we have a lot of privilege and we're lucky to be in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands or in the UK or wherever we will come from, including those in your audience, I'm sure. But it really is about giving back, but obviously, it's making a profit, but for purpose, that you can blend the two.
Yeah. Let's talk about this festival, because I think that Kimberly has mentioned it twice. You did very well with the festival. Let me just put it that way. Do you have any idea why it did so well at this particular time?
I think Kimberly alluded to the fact that, it wasn't the usual suspects, it wasn't some high commissioner somewhere or some government official somewhere. It did feel very organic in the way that it became so popular. We were even till now, it's been, it was on the 6th of August, Ignite, the first Pan-African Business Festival. We called it a festival because we had so many creative industry types discussing the business side of it, Africa's potential as a cultural hub and creative industry, things like IP and those kinds of, intellectual property issues, where we're discussing, this Beyonce issue and how, African creatives, whether they've benefited from that kind of project or not, and how do we protect ourselves as a people from being exploited further, right? So it's not just about, oil and cocoa, it's about our intellectual property and our culture. So these are all things that came up. So I think the diaspora link, the fact that it was quite bottom up, it wasn't kind of top down, it wasn't kind of descriptive or prescriptive. I think all these factors, and then the fact that the feedback was that it was very, very engaging. We had we had over 70 speakers from, I think, over 16 countries, including the Caribbean, the UK, Europe. It was a real spread of, input and, just engagement. So yeah, I think that's why it did well. It's just, people talking truth about the issues, but also the collaborative spirit of wanting to work together. And of course, ScaleUp Africa as a convener plans to follow up with these conversations. So we're actually planning to release a white paper next month, because we spoke to over 300 stakeholders, including some of our speakers, but of course we had major conversations with, investors, with entrepreneurs, policymakers, and various experts from across to figure out, and we kept asking this question, what is that one policy activity that you can actually implement to make a huge change to your particular sector? So obviously we covered agriculture, which is the obvious one. We covered technology. We covered the creative industries, and we had some amazing panelists from across Africa talking about the business side of the creative industry. And we had obviously the diaspora conversation as well, just people interested in, sharing their stories about how they've done business, how they've conducted business, how to, go about doing the same and increasing the level of trade and activity between us as a diaspora business community. So I mean, we're very grateful for Ignite, and I think it helped us as our own, in terms of our own, process as a startup, collect so much data. We had so much rich data and conversations. Like I said, over 300 conversations. We had actual conversations. There were no, and we had, just overwhelming, really. So we're grateful.
I love that. I think it's such a, especially during a time where we were kind of being thrown dead with webinars and festivals and online events. It's so refreshing to see that this was the thing that was necessary and that people really went to. But you also touched on something earlier. You were talking about how we're now looking, or how we should be looking at moving away from these webinars, getting something more tangible. How does that look for ScaleUp Africa? How are you looking to be part of that shift?
Yeah, so we are in very advanced talks with various stakeholders, because we work collaboratively, as you know. That's part of our DNA, with corporations and funders, to implement very sort of impactful projects, as almost like, again, case studies that we can then demonstrate. Say, look, we have this particular problem that we identified through our client feedback. We were able to raise X amount of money to solve this particular problem, and this has been the impact. And this is how it's sustainable. We see how it's sustainable because there's a marketplace for that particular end, as a particular end goal. So we just, at this stage, we're just designing and tweaking some of these solutions with our corporate and foundation partners to just demonstrate some of the creative things that can be done. And we have access to academics, business people from across the continent. Again, I alluded to this before. People who have already proven that specific solutions work in other marketplaces. Not to say it's a copy and paste drop, but at least we can adapt and try things out to help people to sustain their livelihoods, primarily because it's all about people's pockets. And then through livelihood improvement, you can access other services which are essential to your life. So that's our part, our contribution.
Well, for those of you who just tuned in, welcome to Women About Business. And this is the place where myself and Kimberly Ofori, every Tuesday from 8 p.m., we get to talk to phenomenal women, global Africans, women of impact that can help us along our way as we build and drive change in our world. And as of now, we are talking to Amma Gyampo. representing ScaleUp Africa, and she does tons of other things. So if you might Google her, you'll run into other initiatives that she is a part of. But it's all in the name of setting up the right collaborations, building businesses so that they could continue to grow and bring about change, especially on the continent. And if you feel like you have a few things to chip in here and there, make sure that you drop them in the comment box if you are listening from YouTube or Facebook, or if you're simply listening via TuneIn, then you can come on the social platforms and engage in this conversation so that, in a few minutes, I'll be able to drop your question and pick on more from Amma so that she can help us to build our business as we grow. Well, Skill Up Africa is like the baby of yours. Why did you and your co-founder start Skill Up Africa? What's like the main reason it's here?
Yeah, I mean, Olivia and I moved back to Ghana at different stages, but I think between us, maybe almost 10 years. So for me, almost 9, for her, almost 10. And so having worked with the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and that's a word we all use quite a bit, but, from investors to incubators to accelerators to the entrepreneurs themselves, the SMEs themselves, having just, observed that scene for several years in our various endeavors, it became clear that there is a lack of, again, collaboration and connectivity. So if someone's dealing with grassroots startup kind of conversations on the train, like basic lingo, basic business plans, ideation stage, ideally it should be very clear where they will go after that particular program, and then after another program maybe, or after testing the theory, getting some insights from being out in the market, you refine and maybe go into acceleration at some point, and then it should be clear. So what's happening is that we observe that a lot of people are going through some of these programs, but at some point the support just ends and then they almost fall off a cliff, right? It's a bit of a cycle, and then you see the same old people in different programs still calling themselves a startup. And it's like over 5, 6, 7 years, like a teenager. Yeah, exactly. So it's like a teenager not wanting to leave home. Trust me, I've lived at home, in and out between, different phases of my life. So it's not to say that that's a bad thing, but it's almost like that kind of scenario. So it was very clear that there was a gap in the ecosystem for growth-based services. Of course, there are some players in that space, but we were very passionate about providing for women in particular. And companies that are already existing and have maybe hit a bit of a wall, because obviously notoriously it's very difficult to borrow from the banks here. Interest rates are extremely high. So we're having conversations with certain partners to maybe look at that in terms of working capital, helping them to plug some of their day-to-day challenges, looking at scaling up their businesses, talking to people like Kimberly Ofori and other people to just figure out how we can better support that particular phase of the business journey. So that's why it happened. And we did do a couple of things together. Olivia and I were introduced through a mutual friend. And we got talking, similar to you guys, got talking, and we're like, I think various similarities and synergies. And so after working together for a few months, we decided, what, let's just collaborate and merge and go full with ScaleUp Africa as a concept. So we keep saying, we were together for 9 months and then had a baby, and the baby was ScaleUp. Literally, you're right. ScaleUp is our baby.
I have a question. On investment, I don't know why I raised my finger anyway. On investment, you mentioned something about people becoming and kind of getting into this cycle, startups getting into this cycle of going from accelerator to accelerator, incubator to incubator. This is, I think, really like a universal problem. You see this everywhere, but especially countries where there's just so much money going into these incubation programs, right. Because it's like linked. Like, for instance, I know for the Netherlands, they have about 5 or 6 different stage incubation programs that the government is sponsoring, because it's part of what their goals are for whatever next 20, 30 years. And so they have all of this money. They say, look, you guys need to find a way to spend it on developing some sort of program that is going to help some sort of business. And so now you're having kind of these massive, you have this massive influx of startups or people coming up with ideas just to get into certain programs. And then you have those people who, like you said, get stuck and get really good at pitching, but not really at building the business, right? So now they're pros at pitching, they're winning all the competitions, but at the same time, when you kind of dive into the business, there is no business. So as an investor, coming from anywhere actually, as an investor, how do you, especially in Africa, when it's so difficult to sometimes find data that is not subjective. Very
I get exactly what you're saying.
How do you do your due diligence in that sense? How do you distinguish people who are just really passionately full of ideas, people who are just kind of stuck in becoming good pitchers, and people who are actually just stuck because the business idea is there, they understand their market fit, but they don't know how to scale? How do you see that without the resources that we would have here, for instance, in the West?
I mean, we generally have a very extensive network. So I'd say most of our, mostly through referrals, to be honest, recommendations, introductions, and through the ecosystem. So I think that is a big part of the conversation. And then, it's a small, I mean, Africa is a big village in that sense. People know people who know people. It's very easy to have a conversation. Hey, this person, or you get some expose, some information. You can't get away with that for very long. And it's a very small ecosystem in that regard. If you're looking for cash or you're looking to join a program, it's pretty easy to kind of expose someone who's a little bit, dodgy.
Right.
And because of the relationships, you often say, hey, you put some information out to certain people, and then you get some information back, which kind of maybe prompts you to proceed or not. So I think relationships are really, really important. Really important. Yeah.
And it's not to say that because while you were answering, I was like, I'm not trying to say, oh, in Africa, that's what happens. It's exactly. It's a universal problem. I mean, we have it here. It's
a problem,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that personal touch is really important when you're making decisions like this. Sometimes it's just a vibe. You're like, I'm not sure about this person. Sometimes, and most times you'll be spot on for feeling a certain way, because then later, sometimes you'll find out something later on that comes up with, that's what it was.
Right.
So, maybe women's intuition, but I think generally, a combination of intuition, gut feeling, of course, the numbers. I mean, generally, they're really doing well, and you look at their statements and bank statements and stuff like that. You'll quickly unearth whether, they exaggerated what they're actually doing or underestimated what they're doing. Gotcha. So, I mean, I think that we always say, that your biggest investor is your customer. So if you get your customer, you should be fine. But it's really the work to understand who your customer is and actually grow your business, and not just
right.
Pitching, ideation and pitching has its place. Don't get me wrong, very, very important. And I have a lot of close colleagues who are in that space, and they do an amazing, fantastic, committed job. But beyond that, it is a continuum. It's not like a fixed point. Like, it's got to continue. You've got to see growth phase by phase by phase. So what that looks like is really up to some of us as well. If I'm an ideation person, I should know where to hand them over to ScaleUp Africa, or ScaleUp Africa can then introduce them to investors, or at least work with them and then introduce them to our investors. There's a chain there. I think it's about really collaborating across the chain and not trying to, as often happens, trying to do it all yourself. Because really, if you're grassroots, you're grassroots. If you're, ideation, you're ideation. And you're probably going to be good at that, the business model canvas and all those kinds of pretty, all those nice, nice to haves and the processes. Yeah. But beyond the same point, you've got to grow up and, be honest. Do you actually have a business that's viable?
Right.
Are you going to, just you, in a year's time, is it going to be 2 of you? In another year's time, will it be 4 of you? That's growth, jobs and not just, So that's my take.
So what I'm curious to know, because it's been you've returned for quite some time, because I think you mentioned, just was it 9 to 10 years that you shared of the moment that you went back. So what are some of the interesting developments that you have observed in terms of um, the ecosystem in general, how businesses are developing? Do you see a good positive changes in terms of how businesses get from one stage to the next? How has that been from your view?
I mean, I think it's still challenging that there are some practices that don't help the ecosystem. But I think one of the key things is understanding there is a huge informal sector and people who are in business because they have to survive. Okay, that's a separate conversation. It's a separate space. There's a lot of requirements in that particular space. But for the formal sector, I think definitely, I mean, when you talk about equity, back in the day, it was like, equity, what is that? It's my business. I don't want to give out my business. I don't want to give out shares. But now I think people are maybe understanding a little bit better about equity and investment and those kinds of external factors. Whereas before it was a bit of a foreign concept. So I think that's changed, and it's opened up a few more people to go through the process of doing things a bit better. Your governance structures, your usual systems, your processes, the usual standard stuff. So I think people are more open to doing that work, to tap into opportunities of external funding. So I think that would be the biggest observation of change. But of course, it's a different culture. I think we all have a responsibility to kind of just handhold a little bit more. I think, having longer term programs, which is what we're all for, like longer term qualitative programs rather than this mass quantitative. We train 10,000 entrepreneurs. And
Exactly.
they have different requirements, different ages, different experience, different background, different digital capability, different literacy requirements, different workforce. It's like you can't group them all together and say, yeah, you just ticked a box. And unfortunately, there's a lot of box ticking going on. I'm just saying, there's a lot of box ticking going on. That I don't think that helps. But anyway,
Right.
I'm just saying.
I get you.
Amma is in the shade room from Accra.
Yes.
And
Live and direct.
And what do you think is the main cause that people are now more open to what you just mentioned, equity?
Yeah, I think there's more activity. There are a lot of workshops and a lot of programs. So I think it's just awareness of equity, for example, as an option. Whereas before it's like, is it, and opening up your business to somebody else to come and have a look at it and be scrutinizing your business. I mean, that's because most people will be doing all the wrong things and they haven't got the right structures in place. So that automatically just excludes the equity as even a conversation. But now I think they understand the process, and it's like, okay, we'll use this system. Okay, we'll keep these records. We'll do this. We'll do that. And so it's changing slowly, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's about the quality of outcomes. So if we can demonstrate some people doing an amazing job and doing the right things to get to a certain level, and they've done the right thing, so it's meant that they've been able to scale their business, grow more profitable, employ more people, serve more customers, then I think that will help. Once we get more of those kinds of stories out there, I think that will help.
Yeah.
So I have this question. There has been this recent research done, but it's something that we all knew. That is that investment money coming from the West goes into Africa to predominantly either white Africans or people with a large team of foreign white expats.
Right.
It's something we have known, we have seen, we've called out. Nothing has changed. Now we have figures to back it up. I feel as though, and then there was this outrage, and I think all of this kind of started to gain popularity in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, where people were more so looking at where's money flowing to. And because everybody was talking about, well, we're helping Black people so much, and then we were looking at, but where's the money really going to? And then looking at Africa, it's not going to Africa, really. It's most of the time going to these people who have a nice adventure for 5 years, and then they can go back and say, yeah, I've worked in Africa for 5 years, I built a company, I got funding, and then I left or something, right? And so it's like, first of all, what is your take on how is this still as much as a problem now, or is it even a growing problem? And secondly, how does that also relate to the numbers that we see around funding going to women in general? So two questions.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, again, it's a conversation and debate that is still raging. I think, the facts are undeniable. But on the flip side, it's about capital as well, local capital. Who are the ones locally who are investing in in our companies, right? The indigenous companies. Who are the indigenous Africans investing in indigenous African companies? That is a conversation I think we should rather have. Because obviously, if you look at capital distribution, we know where the money's at. I mean, that's a fact, right? But it's about diversity in deploying that capital to more women, to more Africans, indigenous Africans, who are Black. So that's an intent. It's got to be intentional. I think this is a year where these conversations are being had in the open, which is great to see and hear. But I think we do need to encourage more of our angel networks, and we're all doing little bits and pieces in the angel investment space, early investment space, gender lens investing in more women, training more women fund managers, for example. These are all things that can be done to improve the diversity of investments that are made on the continent, no matter where the funds are sourced from. But yeah, again, I think we
kind of a hitch in the connection. For those of you who just tune in on Women About Business, we're just going to catch up with Amma Gyampo again, who's tuning in with us all the way from Ghana. And Amma Gyampo represents Scale Up Africa, and we're talking about building ecosystems. An ecosystem, as she just beautifully explained, because it's the first time I heard all of these business terms, I was like, okay, wait a minute. I think I need to get a business dictionary. We're talking about the whole scope of business, the investor side, the entrepreneur side, um, accelerator side, so much. So the whole landscape of business as a whole. And she's talking to us about the dynamics of it, especially on the African continent, as she knows. And she's talking to us from Ghana, talking about the right way to navigate, because she is known as the middle woman of connecting companies. Or let me just say, I wouldn't call her a skill up consultant, because that's really your specific thing. I know Kimberly, but she knows she knows how to make it happen. Let me just put that in those type of words. And
Yeah.
she earlier on talked about her company, ScaleUp Africa, having to return. Was it from UK that she returned?
Yeah.
Yeah, from UK that she returned back to the motherland. So she's a proud returnee, and starting her business and navigating throughout the market, and helping companies get along, so that they could smoothly and rightfully get into that next stage. And a lot of familiar points that she pointed out, seeing the familiar businesses joining in all kinds of accelerator programs. It was so I think it was 2 years ago, when I was for a project in Ghana. There were a couple of companies that just kept popping back into particular accelerator programs, and it was, oh, that truck company, oh, it was that handmade this company, or and it was good to see that fire, that passion going on, um, because that is what an entrepreneur really needs. You need to have this undying fire and fight. You know what I mean? But then what is the right step is to have somebody that could help you question, okay, what do you actually need to really get there, and how can we get that? you know
Right.
Problem
Right.
solved. I think that's
But I also
Really
love
important.
what you touched on about, when I asked that question about, money coming into Africa but not going to Africans.
Yeah,
I asked that intentionally because one, yes, it's still something that is kind of, people are still on both sides on
yeah,
about this, whether or not that should be even discussed or whether or not that's right, or
yeah,
but on the other, on the flip side, what I would like to see, and I think that's what she was trying to, or what she said as well, is that
yeah,
we start looking at ourselves in this and say, we now have, we've always had affluent
yeah,
Africans on the continent, expats who have returned, all of these people who have the capital to make a change. So we're not just talking about
yeah,
angel investing in a sense that, and then I mean under 10 or 20K, but like the larger numbers. There
yeah,
are a lot of us who have been here for decades being rich. And so my question is then, having successful businesses, and then having money flowing in that they could now also use or allocate to benefit the ecosystem. And so how are we going to turn the conversation around and say, okay, how do we, because I feel like if you need to incentivize it, it's kind of, it loses its purpose, or it just feels wrong. I'm
yeah,
like, I don't want it to be like, some countries did it in the past where, I know in Asia there were certain countries that they really encouraged through tax kind of rules, and America does that a lot. Giving earns you more, and so. But I feel as though we as a people are now probably at a place where we're taking more responsibility of our own future,
yeah,
and understanding that nobody's coming to help. And really, we don't want anybody else to help because we understand our continent best, right? And we are the only people who are going to be in it for the long haul. We're only going to be in it because it benefits us and the legacy and all our kids and everybody after us. So I speak to a lot of, and no shade, I have a lot of Caucasian friends who talk about, oh, I want to do things in Africa and I want to help. Everybody wants to help. And it's like, I don't know why I do that, but it's like, I
I know.
I
We don't
understand.
charity.
I
We
really
need charity. We need sustainable, tell them they can find market access for products from Africa and then we can export to them. How about that?
I
I
love
was
that.
gonna really phrase this so politely, but I think, and everybody wants to help, but it's like a passion project
Yeah.
that you can kick off, and then at brunch you're going to tell your friends, yeah, because I'm doing this project in Africa, and it's
Yeah,
not, for us, it's not an option. It's not something we do because it's nice. This is our future.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I believe that money that is coming from us is going to, it just goes into more fertile grounds if it comes from 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 the people itself.
yeah,
How do you feel about that, Emma?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think sometimes it can be a bit naive, I guess, to think, oh, we're going to do it all by ourselves. I think
Yeah.
there's so many levels that we need to kind of jump through and get to. So it is a collaborative effort. I think we've definitely seen some of these crowdfunding platforms coming up where private companies or startups or innovators are democratizing certain things like agriculture. You can have it like Uber for agriculture, right? Like if you want to farm pineapples in Ghana, you can go on a platform, you can put your details in, you have a digital wallet, and you can invest in it, and it's very
yeah,
hands on. But the experts are on the ground taking care of it, but you can get your return at a certain level from that particular investment. So there are a few of these, crowd funded or crowd type platforms that are coming up. I think that's definitely a way that people can minimize their risk. I see Samantha's question. Hi, Samantha.
yeah,
About deploying the right tools and then that kind of thing to try it out. If you're in the diaspora, I remember back in the day before I actually decided to move, it was like, oh, Ghana, Ghana's too hot. There are too many mosquitoes. Oh, I don't know anyone in Ghana. It's too risky. These are real
yeah,
concerns. People want some level of a formula, something transparent that they can dabble their toes in and try it out. So there are more of these platforms and networks that come about. But
yeah,
I think we all need to kind of do more work again to just circle connect the dots, like, you know, who's got the money, who's got the market access, what are the projects we can deploy on the ground to create the jobs and train people, and you know, where you know, how do we connect all of that to create projects that can be attractive and, you know, transparent for people thinking about deploying their money. You know, everyone's talking about diaspora funds. What does that really look like? What's Ghana's version going to be, for example, for Ghana? But across Africa, there are varying levels of diaspora funds that are more formalized and give a return. So I don't think we should say we should just come and give back and set up our foundation and just give our money and you know, of course, a lot people want to have a return. I mean, it's not, there's no shame in, not shame is not the word, but like there's no harm in getting a return from an investment that you make on the continent. You should be able to invest in Africa, get a
Absolutely.
return that is, you know, it's been stated, it's transparent, your expectations are met, it's been, you know, we should be able to get to that stage to encourage more people to, from the continent or through, you know, the broader diaspora. I think it would be great to get to that point, but I think we need to start somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, because when I think about us giving back, it's always going to be with a return. I don't believe that we
Right,
are
not just monetary, not just
right.
monetary. Yeah.
Exactly. However, I guess my frustration lies in the fact that we have been talking about this. This is not something that we don't know, not something that we know we need to collaborate more. We know. So my question really is, after, you know, this 1 hour and 6 minutes that we've been on, what can we do? What are the actionable steps that we really need to take? Practical steps that we need to take to get towards real tangible progress?
Wow, that's a big question, Kimberly. I'm not sure if I can answer that today. But I think for us, you know, we are very much in the space of trying to make these things happen. And so, and also, I mean, you know, people can feel free to reach out about some of these crowdfunding platforms and opportunities, because there are a few, mainly in the agri space, though, at the moment. I have other options, but agri is a huge impact sector. So
Grow for Me?
Grow for Me, you know, there's Complete Farmer, there's a few others like that.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think that those would be a good starting point to just dip your toes in and see how that goes. And they're doing quite well in terms of reputation and stuff, so I can kind of vouch for them. But of course, do your due diligence. Don't come and sue me. But yeah, I mean, it's important to come and feel and talk to people. And I don't think there's any remote control way of doing things in Africa. You do have to come, you know, be here on the ground, talk to people, get a feel for what they're doing, visit the sites, you know, the physical sites of where they're you know, carrying out their activities, and see what, you know, again, how to connect the dots. You know, what can you do to, you know, maybe offtake some product or service, or, you know, that's the giving back, right? Like, how can you find, create a pathway for people to also, you know, find some benefits along the way.
Sure. While we're almost rounding up Women About Business, our talk with Amma Gyampo, I would like to pick up on Samantha's question. And she has a good one, actually. How does one who is pretty wet behind the ears, but full of ideas, begin to acquire the right tools and know how to make marked success in business that are directly targeted to the diaspora and Africans? That is a full on loaded question.
Yeah, it is. It is, but as with everything in business, I think it really is about, you know, who is your customer and what is the problem you're solving. It's the same. It's the same question you're going to have to ask yourself, you know. So I think that is what you need to understand. Talk to them, and once you identify them, talk to that particular segment. Be very super niche about it. Go after it. Validate your idea. Try it out on small scale. If it's looking good, you know, take the next step and the next step and the next step. I think that's the only way you can try and find it. But talk to as many people as possible, experiencing the problem that you're trying to solve, and then create a solution that fits, that they're willing to pay for. Not that simple, of course, you know, but we can't cover all that today. Okay. But Sam, I'm here. You know me, so you can reach out to me.
Right. I know she'll hear it. Before we round up, just to hear from you, you know, reflecting on your journey over the last couple of years as a returnee, as now bringing about change in Africa. What are the three major lessons that you have learned about business and life as a whole?
Ah, wow, that's a good question. I think do what feels good. That's, I think, a very important thing. What feels good to you in your heart, in your spirit, in your body. Also know your higher purpose. I think that we touched upon that at the beginning. Your higher purpose will drive you. Um,
Yeah.
through all the ups and downs. And yeah, three, collaboration. I've been saying it, but I think it's really important to find ways that we could all work together without, and knowing your place. You're good at branding, you're good at comms, you're good at this, you're good at that. Like map it out, and connect with the right people. And I think that's the only way we're gonna really get anywhere if
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do more together, and just try to find ways to move forward. You know,
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
that's
great.
three. That's three.
Yeah, those were three. Yeah, yeah. Very on point with that. I love it.
Thank you.
Do you have any last shout outs before we round up the conversation? Shout outs
I see,
to,
I see Evan, I see Samantha, I see
yeah,
Olivia, I see a lot of people, but thank you to everybody. And
yeah,
yeah, it's this is our fight. So I think we all need to just get more serious about connecting the dots and figuring out how we can. So yeah, let's keep in
absolutely.
touch. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
ladies.
And
Awesome.
where
I
can
enjoyed
people
that chat.
find you? Where can people find you online?
Yeah, just Google Scale Up Africa and you'll find us on all the major platforms. Yeah, Scale Up Africa as spelled under my
Boom.
yeah.
Just
Like
Google it.
Google.
Google it, baby. Thanks so much, Amma. Have a good evening, and
Thank you
I look
so much,
forward.
everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
See you in a
Bye.
bit. Bye.
All right. Well, that is another combo. Check.
Is like the first one who was like, just Google us. Like we're
Oh yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. Just Google. Just Google. Just Google my business. We'll be good. We'll be good. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. No, this was
any
really
any
insightful.
new any new like you're a businesswoman as well. Like what have been your lessons this during this lockdown? Let's say from March, because March is when the crazy wave hit all, struck the world. What have been your major lessons as in terms of business?
No, I think funny enough, funnily enough, I think December 19, 2019.
Yeah,
I'm not that old, guys. December 2019, I made a conscious decision to become, to get more out there, to collaborate more, to show more of myself. Then COVID happened. 3 months. Well, COVID happened earlier, but for the Netherlands, we really felt the effects thereof around February, March. That really pushed me to kind of walk the talk, because now
yeah,
I had been posting a lot of on content on social media. I'd been sharing a lot. I'd been writing articles. So I had a big
yeah,
talk and a big game. And now people are inviting me. They were like, "Well, we're going virtual and we want you," because now it's more accessible, right? Because people wanted
yeah,
to find me over, but they couldn't afford it. And now they could afford it because it's going to be on Zoom. So
yeah,
now I had no excuse whatsoever to say no. And the reason I use this is because it's very personal, because it kind of, I understand very much now how important it is, for you as an entrepreneur or as a business person to keep growing, because
yeah,
your business is only going to grow as much as you are willing,
yeah,
to evolve, right? And so
yeah,
that could mean that you're growing together with the business. Might mean that you are growing ahead of the business and you're bringing the business along, or it could mean that you're growing in such a way or in such a direction that you're finding out that what you were doing previously no longer fits and you're not the
yeah,
right person. All of these things you are not going to find out if you don't challenge yourself. And
yeah,
so COVID was really a mirror for me, a reflection, looking back at me and saying, "Hey, what are you doing? Like you're teaching everything that you are not doing, literally."
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was, for me, it was a very personal journey. I think this few months.
It was a good one. That's good. That's
What
good.
about you?
I think what I've learned, health first, and that exact health is going to is it determine? I don't know if determine is the right word, but your business is only as healthy as you are.
Right.
So health first. That has
Yeah.
really been my learning process, and yeah, I think as far as the rest is concerned, I think entrepreneurship is a very uncertain job or an uncertain role that you take on. So the shaking of COVID, it's it was just the same as the normal entrepreneurial life, because you have to deal with un, just unexpected times anyway. So I think what I really learned out of this is yeah, health first, and health in your business, keeping a good balance, and learn to be flexible, like even the more,
Ooh.
I guess.
I think, and also looking at the conversation that Amma and had with us, I feel as
Yeah.
though looking at opportunities
Hmm.
and the ways, finding ways to help others.
Yeah.
I feel like the people that we've been speaking to, it's always very close to their personal goals and ambition and their
Absolutely.
traits, right? I've been recognizing this along. We've had a few of these conversations now.
Yeah.
I'm having always been kind of the networker, connector, wherever she was, looking for that collaboration. You will
Yeah.
find that it keeps coming back in different forms and shapes. And it's so important, like she said, to listen to your intuition and to
Yeah.
just really tap into that and do what feels good. So yeah, I think
Very important.
overall a lot of gems dropped. Yes, we used a lot of business terms, but I think everybody understands the context of us looking at how best can we work together to
Yeah.
create that that we want. I think
Yeah.
that's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So on that note, that was Women About Business for today. And make sure that you find you share it on your timelines even throughout the week, because the content is always fresh. And make sure that you follow Kimberly Ofori on all social media platforms. You'll find her, typing Kimberly Ofori, and the one and only, and type in Miss Abba. You'll find us. Google us, find us, and let's empower women to to be about our business the more. And yeah, thanks so much again, Kimberly. Have a great night. We'll keep in touch, and big God bless to everybody.
That's it.
Bye
Bye.
bye.